Welcome to this presentation on Teamcenter RapidStart. Videos in the Teamcenter RapidStart series cover the introduction to RapidStart, using the rich client, concepts of Teamcenter, searching within Teamcenter, working with items and working with datasets, a brief introduction to workflows, we'll be showing the structure manager, and then the engineering order workflow supplied with RapidStart. The engineering order template that comes with RapidStart is the basis for a company to design an engineering order or change process to be used within Teamcenter. This template allows a company to produce processes or to go further to investigate the optional change management application available for Teamcenter. The RapidStart engineering order comes with an engineering order item type and an engineering order workflow. The workflow is shown here in detail. To simplify the story, I will remove the actions taken by the system. The first person involved in this presentation is the change engineer. He is responsible for assembling the information and creating the change request. Throughout the workflow, the system will task the change engineer to update the engineering order item or to select other participants. The manager will review the change request and, if acceptable, approve the task and create the change notice. The designer is responsible for changing the CAD models and making new revisions of the files. The checker is responsible for reviewing the work, and his approval completes the engineering order. A quick overview of the workflow. The change engineer starts the process off by creating the engineering order item. Next, he adds the required files to the change order and fills out the change request form. The change engineer then starts the engineering order workflow. The manager involved is sent the engineering order for approval. After checking the change request, he fills out the change notice and approves the work. The task goes back to the change engineer to select a designer to do the CAD work. The designer modifies the CAD files and saves them as new revisions. The change engineer updates the engineering order with the new information. Next, he selects the person who will check the work. The checker verifies the work is correct and to standards and approves. The system then completes the engineering order and gives it the required release status. For this engineering order, a modification is to be made to a caster frame by removing material. The change engineer locates and reviews the current parts. The change engineer then creates an item of the type engineering order, giving it an ID and a name. The engineer order item contains two forms, a change request and a change notice. There are folders to contain revised parts, obsolete parts, reference data and new parts. The change engineer checks out and populates the change request form. On completion, the form information is displayed in the Viewer tab. The two impacted parts are copied into the revised parts folder. A document with additional information on the change is dragged directly from the desktop into the reference data folder. The drawing PDF is marked up to show the location of the modifications on the part. On the completion of the building up of the engineering order, the change engineer sends the item revision to the engineering order workflow. The first task in the workflow is for the change engineer to check that his work is complete, then approve the start of the workflow. The next task for the change engineer is to select an engineering manager to approve the request and create the engineering change notice. The engineering manager is using the net-based thin client. The work list has the task for the manager to perform. Here the manager can review the change request and files associated with that request. The engineering manager is now ready to create a change notice and approves the request. The workflow sends the next task back to the change engineer. This is to allocate a design engineer who will modify and revise the parts and associated assemblies. The design engineer reviews the requests and associated parts. The part is opened in the CAD system for modification. As it is a released part, the system warns that modifications cannot be saved for the current revision. The design engineer saves the modified frame as a new revision. The frame drawings are updated. The caster assembly and assembly drawings also need to be updated. The design engineer has completed the work and approves the task complete. The workflow sends the next task back to the change engineer. Using the impact analysis function, the change engineer locates the new revisions of the parts and adds them to the engineering order. The previous revisions are moved to the obsolete parts folder. The next task for the change engineer is to select the person who will check the information before release. The task is sent to the checker. All the information appears in the checker's work list. The parts, drawings and documents can be reviewed. The checker signs off on the data. The system modifies file access and releases the engineering order. The engineering order item and workflow shown here is the template supplied with RapidStart. Both item and workflows can be modified by the user to match your business practices.